Hello, today is February the 12th of 2022. My name is Anthony Villanueva. I am interviewing Jeffrey Villanueva for the Latino Oral History Project, Voices of a Pandemic Project at the Center for Latino and Latin American Studies at Northern Illinois University. This project is in partnership with Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas in Austin. Please know, Mr. Villanueva, this interview will be placed in the Northern Illinois University libraries and shared with Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas in Austin. If there is anything that you do not wish to answer or talk about, I will honor your wishes. Also, if there is something that you want to talk about, please bring it up and we will talk about it. Because we are not conducting this interview in person, I need to record your consent. So I'll ask you a series of 6 questions. Please say, yes, I agree, or no, I do not agree after each one. The Center for Latino and Latin American Studies, which wishes to archive your interview along with other photographs or documentation at the Northern Illinois University libraries, Northern Illinois University in Illinois. We will retain copyrights to the interview and any other materials you donate to the Center for Latino and Latin American Studies at Northern Illinois Universities. 1, do you give the Center for Latino and Latin American Studies consent to archive your interview and your materials at the NIU University libraries?
Yes, I do.
Do you grant Northern Illinois Universities the right, title, and interest to the copyright over the interview and any materials you provide?
Yes.
Do you agree to allow Northern Illinois University libraries to post this interview on the internet where it may be viewed by people around the world?
Yes.
Do you grant the Center for Latino and Latin American Studies consent to share your interview and your materials with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas, Austin for inclusion in the Voices of Pandemic Oral History mini project, which will include posting the interview on the internet?
Yes, I do.
We have questions. You may have answered questions in the pre-interview form we have already filled out. We use this information from the pre-interview form to help in research. The entire form is kept secured in a Voices server at the University of Texas at Austin. Before Voices sends it to the Benson Library and NIU Library, we would have to strip out any content information for yourself or family members. Question number 5. Do you wish for us to share the rest of this interview in the public file available for researchers at the Benson and NIU libraries?
Yes.
And question number 6. On occasion, the Center and Latin American Studies and Voices receive requests from journalists who wish to contact our interview subjects. We will only deal with legitimate news outlets. Do you give consent for us to share your phone number or your email with journalists?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. Jeff, do you want to tell me a little bit about your background, education, job?
Sure. Yes. I grew up in New Jersey. I went to the United States Naval Academy where I received my commission in 1995. I went into naval aviation. I flew helicopters doing anti-submarine warfare. And then after that, search and rescue. After getting out of the military, I got involved in biometrics and identity management. I spent time in Iraq and Afghanistan, working for the government, doing identity type work, forensics, stuff like that. At that point, I came to work at Central Command Headquarters on MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, Florida, where I initially was the biometric SME for the Intelligence Operations Directorate. From there, I went on to do force protection and for the 3, which is operations. And now I currently work as a operational manager for the Science and Technology Directorate, doing discovery and project management for new emerging technologies for the government.
So let's talk about COVID. It seems like a long time ago, but back in 2020,
Yes.
what was your first contact or knowledge of COVID?
So it's kind of funny. Because of what we do, we have people that keep track of what's going on in other parts of the world. And so actually somebody came to me in December of 2019 and said, hey, there's something coming. Be on the lookout. There's something coming from overseas, probably from China. It's going to be a big, it looks like there's a virus. And we kind of went, oh, that's cool. That's good to know. And then sure enough, a couple of months later, things sort of became much more public. And we probably, March of 2020, the entire command, United States Central Command, went to telework, and they sent everybody home. And we spent the next year plus working, doing telework. So my earliest, it actually was a little bit earlier than most, my first exposure to it, the first mention of it.
So you came to know about COVID-19 through your job?
Yes, yeah.
And when you had this knowledge, were you concerned?
No, not really. We had been through other, not pandemics, but other outbreaks, right? And so we kind of thought, oh, Ebola or SARS, whatever, we didn't really, none of us really thought much of it. It'll come and go. And in fact, I remember when we actually did go on to telework, we all had to fill out all these forms to get approval. And we filled them out for like 30 days. We thought like, oh, we'll be back in 30 days. So, we just put end date 30 days out, and we, little did we realize it would be much longer than that.
Okay, did you bring this knowledge home?
No. Not until it became, it was announced by the government, So like I said, we did not, I didn't think anything of it for those first couple months. People started getting sick end of December, and it started getting talked about in the news. Or I'm sorry, into January, right? And so then at that point, then it became it was common knowledge, right? At that point. So
Was the information that you received in the latter part of 2019, was it considered classified information?
No, it was not. It was what we would call open source. And it was just, like I said, we have guys that they're always on the lookout for new technology, new discoveries. That's part of like our jobs. So there was just one of my guys he was interested in what's going on in China, and he just reading news articles and stuff like that, he kind of put some pieces together.
Okay, so let's get back to your home. When did you realize that this was a serious issue, home-wise?
Like I said, it was, even initially, it was like, oh, well, this will pass. It wasn't probably until the summer when people started talking about like, oh, well, it'll burn off, and then it didn't burn off, and it kind of, the can kept getting pushed further and further out. And then I think in the summer, the company I work for, they shut down our corporate offices, and they said nobody's coming back. First, it was until September 1st, and then it was January 1st of 2021. And then you're like, oh, okay, wait, hold on a second. We need to be paying more attention. I remember Jessica, my wife, initially went out and bought like the cleaning supplies and the masks and stuff. And we had all the stuff ready to go just to be prepared. But like I said, it took me a while to really be like, oh, this is sticking around. This is going to hit us hard here for a bit.
Did you change or modify your shopping for home goods or food or Did it alter your normal course of life?
Work-wise, yeah. I mean, uh, we stopped, I stopped going to work. We were teleworking. I was working from my computers here at the house, trying to do, what work I could from here. Obviously, the work that I do, there's different levels of classification. So it took a while for us to figure out how to manage that part of it. So there's things on the work side that got pushed off. It was just like, well, none of us can access those computer systems that are classified. So I guess we'll try again next month. And like, so things sort of got pushed out. On the home front, yeah, we stopped obviously going out to dinner. We stopped going out shopping. We minimized contact. We have our kids and our grandkids, and we were aware of one person bringing something into the house and affecting other people. So we became very aware of where we were going to go, where we could and couldn't go, stuff like that.
Did you use hand sanitizers in the house?
We had wipes, so we were wiping down our groceries when we came in. We were washing our hands a lot more often. But yeah, I'd say that was the
thinking about that period during the initial stages of COVID and the present. Are you still doing the same things in the house?
No, nope. So
Like,
after oh, go ahead.
No, well, what became more lax?
When we bring things, like when we were bringing things into the house, we don't wipe stuff down anymore. I guess maybe it was, we were, you're being told that as a lot of that responsibility, like the stores were wiping stuff down, restaurants were wiping stuff down more. So maybe we sort of thought like, okay, well, it's being taken care of. So we got lax again. So to the point where we don't really, we don't do that anymore. But yeah.
So do you still use hand sanitizers?
Yes. Yeah, we still have them. And it's weird because Jessica doesn't work right now. I'm the one that kind of is going out the most. I guess Allie's would be the next. My stepdaughter, she works in the food industry. So she and I are probably the ones that go out the most. I'm always like, as soon as I come in, I'll wash my hands still, and just to kind of stay safe, I guess, And
is everyone in your family vaccinated?
Yes. Yep. Everybody is.
What about your neighbors? How did the COVID affect your interaction with your neighbors?
So we live in like an older, more established neighborhood with a lot of older folks. So we don't interact with them. Like we never had like people over for dinner in our neighborhood necessarily, but so it was more, we interact in the front yard when we're doing yard work or something. And there we had the social distancing. So it didn't really affect our relationships with our neighbors so much. I guess it did sort of make people more friendly, more aware, right? So I'm probably more friendly with my neighbors now than I've ever been before. Like people actually wave and say hi, but so yeah.
So you worked from home first. Are you still working from home?
No, now we are back in the office full time.
When did you go back to the office?
So let's see, April, probably it was April or May of 21. So it was almost a full year that we were out of the office. And then we went to this staggered, like half the office was in the morning and half the office was in the afternoon. And we staggered all of our desks. So we had 6 feet of separation from our desks. And we put a lot of controls in place there, but then eventually that went away. A lot of the leadership, the current commander at CENTCOM, we say he's kind of old school. So he was very anxious to get people back to work. He didn't like the telework. He didn't like that he didn't have people at his fingertips to let, because there's a lot of important decisions that are being made there on a daily basis. So he was anxious to get people back in. So we're to the point now where we're pretty much 100% back in the office, except for, people with extreme, immunodeficiencies, stuff like that. And that's been for
Florida,
the last eight months now.
Florida, what is the mask mandate? Is there a mask mandate in Florida?
No, there's, in fact, even when there kind of was, there really wasn't. It's never been enforced here.
And on the base, do you guys wear masks?
Yes. So the base has their health protection conditions, and the command has theirs. They align those together. So basically, as soon as I walk onto the CENTCOM campus where we all work, if you're inside a building, you're masked up. Once you leave the building, you can unmask, if you're in an open space. But inside, we're supposed to be masked up still.
And did you know of anyone that contracted COVID?
Yes, several of my coworkers have over there.
Did they contract the COVID while they were working from home, or were they working in the office?
I guess it's been a mixture. It was some during the time we were working teleworking, but there was a person that just this last week was COVID positive, and we're all back in the office now. Obviously, they were not, but we all were.
Were you in contact with that employee?
Yes, yeah.
Experience any symptoms?
No, I've been very lucky that we.
Did anybody else in that room or cubicle or area contract COVID?
No, there didn't seem to be any. It didn't affect.
So did the command institute any kind of protocol? Did they ask him to stay home, or did he come to work? Did he come to work the next day?
Not the most recent. I mean, back in the beginning, yes, there was all kinds of protocols. We were the first time it happened. Yes, they came in and wiped down the whole office. Everybody was gone. They wiped down the whole office, and then we came back in. But now it's once your symptoms go away, you're allowed to come back to the office, and there really isn't. It really doesn't slow down the office work at all.
Did you hear of any friends that you're not involved with in work capacity, but just friends from around the country that you're in contact with that experienced any COVID experiences?
Nobody. Actually, no. Nobody really shared anything with me.
Did you hear any horror stories?
No, I really didn't experience any of that kind of stuff. Thank God. I mean, it was friends of friends, that kind of thing.
You ever hear of anybody dying from COVID in your circle?
Not directly, no. Like I said, it's always been like one person removed kind of a thing.
Anybody hospitalized in your neighborhood from COVID that you know of?
No, not hospitalized. I mean, like people have gone into the hospital, but then it wasn't like they stayed or anything like that. I mean, I guess part of it is you got to think about where I live, Florida, and where I work on a military base with very conservative viewpoints and stuff like that. So a lot of the people are anxious to downplay or deny, or a lot of the people in my office were like, oh, it's no big deal, let me get back to work, without really, I don't think, thinking through the longer term implications of it all.
Speaking about longer term implications, what do you see going forward? Do you see this apprehension about COVID becoming the new normal going forward?
I'm not really sure it's my views. It's funny because my views are very different than my friends and coworkers at work. They're, like I said, much more conservative. I'm much more, left leaning, I guess. So things that I think should be a concern, the people I interact with, it doesn't seem to be. So that always kind of throws me. It makes me think like, well, am I the one that's sort of over, being, throwing things out of proportion or something like that? But yeah, so.
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to mention?
I was gonna say, like, so the guy I speak to the most, it's funny, I have a really good friend at work, and we are pretty much on polar opposite ends of the spectrum politically. And so we purposely engage with each other on these kinds of topics, with the understanding that we are friends. We are friends first, and even if we disagree, we can disagree and we're still going to be friends. There's other people I would never have these conversations with at work because they're just too far removed from my viewpoint that we're never going to sort of be able to meet in the middle. But my friend, we have these conversations, and he got his vaccination exemption. I helped him get it. He's one of my employees, so I helped him get his exemption, and we spent like lots of time talking about, although the fact I totally disagree with him, and I would, I think it's for the best that if it inconveniences us as individuals, it's better for the society as a whole. And he is much more on the end of, it's your personal responsibility. I'm going to take precautions for myself and my family, with the understanding that you all should be doing your part. And if everybody does their individual part, that's how we're going to reach sort of this common ground. And so I just find it interesting that like two people can be looking at the same data, at the same situation, with two very different viewpoints, and still sort of have the same goal in mind, but the methods to get there, how different they can become.
Makes sense. I guess that's it. One last question. How do you think the state of Florida handled the COVID outbreak as opposed to the rest of the country?
It's hard. It's weird because, everything nowadays is like kind of coded by this political discussion, right? All these talking points. So, there's part of me that says they handled it completely wrong. They didn't do enough. They didn't do anything a lot of times. But then there's another part of me that looks, and like I said to you earlier, like I have not experienced people dying. I haven't experienced the hospitals being overflowing with COVID cases either. So it's sort of this weird, like how much of that is what the media is pushing, their agenda, and what information are they pushing to us, and how much of it is my actual experience? Like, because there seems to be a very big dichotomy there of like, man, I wish they would do more. But then you ask me, have I seen anything? Well, no, I guess I really haven't. And I understand it's more focused in the healthcare industry and retirement centers, and it affects those people more. And I'm not really involved in that, so maybe that's why. But I do find it, like I would like to think that our government would be doing the most they can do to keep us all safe. But like I said, and so I want to say, oh, they didn't do enough, because that's what I saw in the news. But I did not experience any sort of extra hardship other than having to wear a mask and having to listen to people complain about it,
So, do you get concerned or upset when you go to, well, Florida never had a masking mandate, so, the reaction to people unmasked is very benign, I suppose.
It is.
Yeah.
You see people there. I guess there was a time where people came to the supermarket unmasked, and people would gasp and kind of look, but even that's gone away. It's like either you wear your mask or you don't, and nobody really pays attention to it anymore. And I still wear mine, but there's plenty of people that don't, and that's fine. And
All right, Jeff. thank you for letting me take this time to record this. If there's ever anything else you wish to add in the future, you let me know, and we can do this again
Sure.
on an abbreviated method. So thank you, and let me stop the recording for a moment.